Good evening. As usual, we will get started in just a few moments once folks have a moment to join the meeting if they're planning to do so. Okay, good evening. Thank you very much for joining us. You will note I'm not calling this meeting to order because it was already called to order. A group of us have been at this since noon for working on board goals for the superintendent and other items, including just completing an executive session for negotiation to discuss negotiations and review performance of a public employee. That was from about 5:05 to about 5:45. We are now going into a workshop format, and at which point I will turn this over to Director Jackson for the land acknowledgement.
Thank you. Our written land acknowledgement can be read on our website or on the wall. I want to actually take a moment to reflect about one facet of our land acknowledgement, which is that it takes a retrospective look at the long history of human history in this place, acknowledging the indigenous people of the Coast Salish tribes, the Snohomish, the Stillaguamish, Suquamish, people of the Tulalip tribes. This is a long history of human activity. It's also a long future. And over the last few weeks, I've had many opportunities to learn from present day wisdom and indigenous lifeways. I've had professional collaborations with people of tribal communities who are leading in ecosystem restoration work, in education, both of tribal students and of the general population of students in Washington State. I've been inspired at our Washington State School Directors Conferences by the perspectives of Indigenous educators. And so as you read our land acknowledgement or reflect upon it, I would just invite you to think about all the ways that the Indigenous people of this region continue to shape our society for the better. I want to acknowledge and thank those people, past, present, and future, for the bold and rich contributions that they make to our community. And I want to also acknowledge that, you know, these connections to the land and waters, this long history of stewardship, this belonging in place is part of why this region is such a beautiful place to raise children. So thank you. Over to you.
Thank you very much. I will remind folks that this is a workshop, a board workshop, which means that we not only allow but seek community engagement on the items on our agenda while those items are on the agenda. If you are in person and would like to make a comment on the item on the agenda, please just let us know and we'll get you a microphone so that those who are watching the Zoom meeting at the moment or watching it later on our YouTube channel can hear what you're saying. If you are on the Zoom session and have something you'd like to say, please just note your name and location in the Q&A real quick and then start typing what you want to say. Because when I see your name and location pop up, that will give me a cue to pause the conversation so that what we are still talking about is what you want to comment on. Okay, we'll move on to our discussion portion, which is the main portion of this meeting. And it begins with a discussion of our Bayview property and a proposal from Island Roots Housing. I will turn it over first to Dr. Moshe.
Thank you. And I just want to give a little context. We were talking about the building and property over in Bayview at the corners there. The building had been donated to the district a very long time ago. It's now owned by the district and for a time was used as a school, the Bayview School. It since has been rented by Goosefoot, and they are leaving the space. And we actually do have it rented in the short term. But in the meantime, I started having conversation with Island Roots Housing to see if there were some possibilities there. And Rose is actually here from Island Roots Housing to talk specifically about what the possibilities may be and engage with the board to see if there's any interest. So Rose.
Thank you very much for this time and considering this proposal for a partnership of sorts to explore the possibilities for both preserving the Bayview School building and enhancing the uses of that property and ensuring that some of the amazing uses that are happening right now can continue into perpetuity. That is the vision that we are proposing, that we explore the feasibility of. And I will just add the context that I actually worked in the Bayview School since 2021 when I became finance director of Goosefoot before Goosefoot launched Island Roots Housing, and I became the founding managing director of Island Roots Housing. One of our goals as an organization that is deeply rooted in community is to make sure that any project that we engage in is really collaborative with other entities that are working for the greater public good, and also that it is deeply informed by community needs, and that it tries to serve multiple purposes and have broad community benefits. So we see the Bayview School property as a unique opportunity to have historic preservation of an icon that is at a critical crossroads. So we're calling this proposal the Crossroads proposal. It is at a critical crossroads, both geographically and for our community as it relates to the need for affordable housing for the local workforce, and a critical crossroads as it pertains to the food security network that Goosefoot has been working so hard to, in collaboration with other partners, including in the past with the school district on the school farm, so that our economically vulnerable community members, and especially the children of families that are economically vulnerable, can have those supports. So that's what's behind this proposal that we took on envisioning, thanks to Superintendent Mocha. And what we are proposing is a memorandum of understanding that basically puts us in a position where we can represent the property in feasibility work. And in that way, we can be the project manager for feasibility. We can engage in fundraising on behalf of feasibility. And we can also hire contractors like geotechnical expertise, for example, septic analysis and designers, to see what the potential is there. I just want to be really honest that this is a very, very hard time for both our nonprofits that are working in food security, that are having their funding drastically cut, and it is a very hard time for housing, where almost all of the federal funding for housing is threatened on one level or another very severely. So this is a challenging project but it is an opportunity to have multiple entities contribute to it programmatically and thereby expand the opportunities for raising the kind of funding that it would take to be able to preserve that building, which is going to be, honestly, a lot of work. And so the first task would be to evaluate the potential for preserving that building first and foremost, and then to add housing probably in a different building, because that building would be more suited, highest and best use would be for programming that, again, continues to support the families of the South Whidbey School District. So I'm happy to have a discussion about this. I've tried to sort of lay out our process. We've done some preliminary exploration regarding county codes, but county codes are in the processes of changing due to the comprehensive plan. So we didn't spend too much effort on that, but we have had preliminary discussions with county planning staff to find out if there might be changes that would be pertinent to this particular project. First off, just a question of whether or not it could be included in the RAID, the Bayview RAID, which would allow for more opportunities for multifamily housing. That looks very unlikely. That does not preclude some interesting opportunities, however, to house the workforce that is working in food security and food production. So we did some preliminary analysis of possible funding for the feasibility phase and for the permanent project phase. I will be honest again that historic preservation is incredibly underfunded at both the national and the state level. But again, if we have programming that can really meet the niche, that is something that those funds go towards to preserve this as a community asset, there is greater possibility there. So very early days, but in order for us to get started, we need to establish some sort of relationship to the property. And so that is why we're suggesting a memorandum of understanding that just lays out our relationship during this feasibility phase.
Thank you very much, both for bringing this opportunity to the district and for the presentation on it. My overarching question would be just exactly what you're looking for from the board. My understanding would be approval for the superintendent to enter into an MOU with Island Roots Housing. Got turned off.
Opposite?
Yes, exactly. And that would be for the feasibility phase.
Excellent. Any other comments or questions from board members or any community members or administrators or students?
I just want to first acknowledge that we, Rose and I, have had a professional association in the sense that our two nonprofits have engaged together in grant seeking. We were awarded a grant from the Department of Commerce. We completed the work and the grant was fully funded and closed. So we're no longer in that formal relationship. But as program partners, I've really developed an appreciation for the integrity of Island Roots' way of doing their work, and their mission alignment is very sincere and clear to me. And so I really feel like I appreciate that I know the who behind the proposal quite well. I also just want to point to the very important agricultural activity of that corner with the proximity to the Good Cheer Food Bank and Garden, with the, as you mentioned, it being just outside a RAID, and that Big Acre being such an important part of the community's both identity and tactical food production. So thank you for noticing and acknowledging the role of agriculture in this set of challenges. And food security, as we know, is something that we've always leaned on public partnerships to, and on NGO partnerships to make sure that our families get fed. And that's one of the things that makes our community so rich. So thank you.
I think I would also just add that I've it's been expressed to me that the needs in our schools around food security are growing at a much higher rate, and that it is becoming increasingly hard to meet the needs. So I appreciate any sort of partnership where we can focus on addressing that proactively. I also, the items that you're putting in place, I think are very much in alignment with our district needs, daycare centers, resource centers, mental health offices. And I appreciate the exploration for looking at housing. With the cuts to the federal funding in the housing agency, I was made aware that Housing Authority will be losing 14 of their Section 8 vouchers sometime next year, along with about $350,000 in federal funding. So that's going to hit our community really hard. And I would appreciate a partnership with the values aligned organization that can help us try and
They've had a long day. I'm a +1 to everything that's been said already, and I'm really excited too about the idea of having it be a multi-use building and really looking into what it could be, because that also speaks to multi-generationality, and having so much life and so many different things happening in one building that all can be connected, but also have their own identity is very exciting to me, and just bringing more life to that corner that's already really robust. So thank you for bringing to our attention what you're going to be looking for in terms of the potential of that space.
Testing. Hi. I am thrilled to hear that the school board wants to support housing. That's huge. I've been working with the port for a long time on this concept, so it's exciting to hear that the school is on board on that. With that, I would really encourage you, and you probably already did this, reach out to Island County for the feasibility cost, because you're bringing economic dollars into Island County, and they've already done some looking into what that looks like, working with the Housing Authority. So I'm sure you're already on this, but I really encourage that collaboration, because housing is, we've been looking at it for quite a while. It's going to be quite the need here very shortly. So thank you. This is exciting.
Anything else? Well, thank you very much, Ms. Hughes, for coming in with the proposal. It will be on the agenda for next week's business meeting to get the approval or to get a vote from the board on this proposal.
The only question I have is, is the board's approval of your letter what you need, or do you have an actual MOU that you want us to engage in?
We have preliminary work on an MOU, but I think it would take discussion with the superintendent to actually hammer out what the provisions of the MOU are. So yeah, it would be authorizing the superintendent to work with us on an MOU.
So if we could do that in the next week, then Becky and I can collaborate and get something together. If you have time, maybe Friday?
Might I recommend that the agendized item could be as simple as a motion to authorize the superintendent to enter into an MOU with Island Roots Housing as pertains to this project as outlined?
Sounds great.
And then that
And
leaves you
then
the
it
freedom
gives you
to
time
plan
to
on your
draft the
timeline.
actual MOU. Okay.
And the letter could be appended as the context for the brief memo.
Yeah, that was why I had that question at the very beginning
Okay.
of what you need out of this. So it sounds like just approval for the superintendent
To
to,
engage in an
Yep.
MOU process. Okay,
Yep.
great.
excellent.
Thank
Won't
you.
be me, Rose.
Okay. Well, thanks for getting it rolling.
Yes.
I appreciate that. And I'm going to take my leave because I'm just getting back from vacation for this meeting. And I'd like to.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for making time for us. We will move on to the next item on our agenda, which is our interscholastic report and athletic handbook. Mr. Sommer.
Thank you to the board and both superintendents, community members, administrators, Callahan. So this is just kind of a snapshot of mostly athletics. Okay, we got some club stuff in there for both the middle school and the high school over this last year. So we'll talk about some demographic data, some celebration, and then kind of what I'm looking at as far as priorities for next year. Slide, please. So these are the opportunities we have at the high school. Okay, so what we are currently offering by season. These aren't set in stone. This is pretty solid for what we have right now. However, along with the Healthy Youth Survey, every 2 years we need to do an interest survey. And so that'll be conducted this next school year and just make sure that what we're offering is aligned with what our students are interested in doing. Right. So some demographic data here. Now, these numbers might not look what you're used to. This is a snapshot. All athletic numbers are taken October. And that's what we work with for the year. Okay, so with an average enrollment about 360, about 237 of our kids are involved in athletics. Over 22 teams, or 22 sports, 37 teams. That includes our JV teams. For those that have JV, with 125 boys and 12 girls. Now we see we're at 53% male, which isn't quite half. However, we're doing better than the national average, which is about 58% male at the high school level. You'll see that data flip to the middle school level, but that kind of follows the national trend. Girls between the ages of 12 to 15 tend to leave athletics. So we have real strong participation numbers up through middle school. And I think our participation numbers of young women in middle school sports is extremely high or above the national average. And we just see it kind of fall back to a normal trend in high school. And then our staff, 66% male currently, and that's just coaching staff. But so as we just talked about, right, we've got some real haves, have-nots in our school district. I do want to highlight 50% of our free and reduced students participate in athletics, which is an extremely high number. And I will credit that to Kimmy Johnson and Miss Mary Mitchell, who work very hard to make sure that our families are aware of the changes that came from House Bill 1660, which, if you're not familiar, basically directs all districts that all ASB activities, interscholastic activities, are to be free to students who qualify for free and reduced, which is great for them and getting their participation. Not always great because the state didn't provide any funding to back up the loss of revenue. But what it does, it gives it, they still have to fill out a waiver. Okay, just being qualified for free and reduced does not guarantee that you get everything waived. They still have to fill out the waiver. But where Mary Mitchell really comes in is helping us get that out, and then working kind of discreetly between the readiness to learn folks, Ms. Johnson, myself, and the coaches. Like I said, we have haves and have-nots. We have plenty of people who are willing to donate old shoes or buy new stuff, cleats, any kind of gear. So we're making sure not only are they allowed to participate, but that they have what they need in order to participate fully with their peers. But just kind of another snapshot. So, participation in sports tends to go down as students get more into their academics. It's harder. It's not impossible, but it's harder if you're leaving campus for running start or something like that to get back in time for practice. We have students do it. And so you generally see a drop. This senior class, while we have a whole lot of really talented athletes or a high level athletes, we just didn't have as many athletes in that senior class. And you can see, honestly, what keeps most of our programs alive at that 1A level is the fact that we have so many athletes that compete in multiple sports, right? 98 two-sport athletes. That's pretty high, considering we only had 234 kids complete in sports, that over half of those kids played more than one sport. All right, the fun stuff. So this is kind of what we accomplished as a department over the year. Lots of great stuff there, cross country, wrestling, with state placers. What I'd like to highlight down there at the bottom is we had 7 additions to the Wall of Fame this year. And so that's seniors that have accomplished enough in order to, by sport, earn their spot on the Wall of Fame. And that generally involves either being a state placer or being a multi-year all-conference athlete. And so in a class that only had 42 athletes, 7 of them earned spots on the Wall of Fame. And we scored 2 WIA Athletes of the Week this year. It's coaches put athletes in for it. The WIA kind of goes through, has a voting process at their level. And those that are selected get a cool all right, we've got green. We also had 52 athletes earn all conference titles this year, which is pretty amazing. Now, some of those are doubled up. We have some folks like Cody Redford who are earned all conference titles in all 3 sports, or 3 seasons. Actually, he got 4 all conference titles this year in 3 sports. So offense and defense for football. Our girls tennis team, under the stewardship of a brand new coach, Levi Buck, won the sportsmanship award. And then we actually had 4 coaches get coach of the year this year, to include Mark Eager, Eddie Mulcahy, and Josh Coleman. And me. Slide, please. Okay, so academically, this is the one that surprised me, not because I don't expect our students to do well academically, but 18 out of our 21 varsity teams had a cumulative GPA of over 3.0, or an average GPA of over 3.0, earning them a WIA Scholastic Award. And then 7 of them earned an Outstanding Team Award, and they've got an average team GPA of over 3.5, which is phenomenal. 18 out of 21 is just a wild number to me. It's my first year. Maybe that's common for us, but that seems like a high number. Slide, please. So clubs. So currently, these are the clubs that we are actively working on campus. So Sparkle Cheer is our, it's kind of more of it's unified. So we have students who are from our life skills program that mix with students who are not in our life skills program and cheer. They usually do a couple football games a year, and then I don't have cheerleaders in my wrestling that come to my wrestling events, and so I exclusively use Sparkle Cheer for wrestling. Model UN, they're always traveling, doing great things. Interact, Spanish Club, our National Honor Society, Homework Club, Queer Trans Club, the Hot Wheels Club. I don't really know a lot about that one, but it sounds pretty cool. I think it sounds cool. Our Ecology Club and our Winter Sports Club. And then the one that I'm going to be hoping somebody picks up next year is that with the addition of our drama program, that we start a drama club. I think that would be pretty cool.
Quick question, if I may. The Winter Sports Club, is that for skiing, snowboarding,
Yes.
that sort of thing?
Yep,
Thanks.
snowshoeing,
Thank you.
all kinds of stuff. Yep.
May I ask what the Interact Club is?
So that's kind of like DECA. It's a business. So our ASB report. So I know we talked at the beginning of the year, working with Mr. Paul Field, and I believe Elsa came and gave a presentation, our this year's ASB treasurer. Paul and Elsa and Kimmy did a ton of work this year to really get our ASB finances back on track. And Elsa was the right person for the job. She's wicked smart. And so they've done a really great job this year of getting I think the ASB to a point where as Elsa departs and we get a new treasurer and having Kimmy in there, they'll be able to continue that cycle of doing things the right way. Started the year at ASB with $43,000 balance, and we're ending with a $54,000 balance. It might adjust a little bit as we run the last few POs that were signed off by the kids, but we're healthy, we're doing well, considering. Another thing they did this year is, and yeah, that's just high school, not middle school. So outside of fundraising, the ASB gets money, and so they've got to pay for a lot of things. They've got to pay for postseason. They've got to pay for hotel rooms at state. They've got to pay for dances. But what they also did was they gave every club and every team $100 each year. So here's $100. In addition to that, each sports team got an additional $5 participant with the direction of spend this on something fun. Okay, use this to build community, to build team spirit. Don't use this to purchase equipment. We'll find other funding sources for that. But use this to really enjoy being a student athlete or being part of a student club. Some of the things ASB this year, they helped us out between the middle school ASB, the high school ASB, and Booster Club. We were able to purchase about $16,000 worth of new hurdles for the track. Put on 3 dances this year, had helped out with the senior week activities, assemblies, and then they did a field day as well. So our ASB did a lot this year. On to the middle school. So middle school actually has 4 seasons, a few less opportunities, but their seasons are a lot shorter. So we've got 8-week seasons in middle school. It gives us the opportunity to offer 4 seasons. Okay. So here, as you can see, right, we've got 264 students and 195 of them competed in athletics this year, which is a crazy number. We're down to 49% male, which is pretty consistent trend that we have at our middle school, that we have more females participating in athletics than males. And then our staff is about centered there too. Slide. In middle school, 58% of our students on free and reduced lunch participate in athletics. So the message is getting out there. I know that was one of our department's goals this last year, was to increase our messaging of our free and reduced and our McKinney-Vento students, to let them know that, hey, not being able to pay for an ASB card, not being able to pay your sports fee, or not having equipment should not be a barrier to you participating in interscholastic activities. Slide. Here we see the opposite. So as you increase in grade, your participation increases. Part of that is that 6th graders aren't eligible to compete in all sports. They can't play football. Right now, we've got too many kids that want to play boys basketball. We don't have a whole lot of opportunities for 6th graders. And so the opportunities increase as they increase in age. But I think that we will continue to see strong numbers in the middle school. We have great coaches, and we really push it because it's such a great opportunity. We all know we live on an island. There's not always the same opportunities that you're going to have over town. And so, and the parents honestly love middle school sports because they don't have to drive them to practice. They only have to pick them up, and they ride a big yellow bus to games, and they don't have to drive them up to Oak Harbor, at 7 o'clock on a Saturday morning for a soccer game. We still have quite a few multi-sport athletes in the middle school ranks as well. Slide. The Cougar ASB did a lot of work this year. They came to Kayla and I at the beginning of the year and said, how much would it cost to make sure that all of our teams have new uniforms? And so we started looking at that. In fact, we have in the last, I would say since last spring, we did track uniforms. But since then, the only team in the middle school that has not gotten new uniforms is football. And Kimmy and I are working on that over the summer. So all of our Cougars will look the part to match their new field and their new gym. They also put on a couple dances, the Harvest Hangout, Winterfest, and then of course our ASB hosts our Olympic ceremony every year. Slide. So this is just kind of from a facilities perspective. As we all know, we got a new floor and bleachers in our main gym, which is awesome. We also, last year during our Title IX work, we identified that we had some discrepancies between the softball field and the baseball field. And our maintenance folks have done a lot of work since last season to get that at least on par with the baseball field. I would say we're probably at about a 90% solution there. We have a little bit of work left to do, and we'll get there. We also added some new dirt for our Okay, you got lights on the football field. Next summer, we're hoping to completely strip and refinish the auxiliary gym floor. That's not a replacement. That's just instead of kind of taking some of the wax down and re-waxing it, we want to strip it completely down and repaint it. And then we'll be starting to work on the new stadium and track. And I have already started coordinating with the athletic directors in both Coopville and Oak Harbor, and they have taken it to their district offices, and both are willing to develop some solutions for us because I think we're going to be out at least for football and girls soccer that fall season. We won't at least be able to start with our home games at home, and so instead of having an all away season, we would be able to use Coopville and Oak Harbor's fields for our home games that year. Slide. What's that? So for soccer, we can do that. It all depends on how deep we would get into postseason. We can't hold any playoff games up at the park. We need to have a stadium. And I've talked with the coaches about that. I think if the coaches are fine, what I don't want to do is create a situation where I've moved football to a place where there's a stadium and folks can come watch and they can have games in the evenings, and then tell the soccer team that they've got to play at 3 p.m. without a place for folks to sit. So I think if the team's okay with that, then I'd be willing to use that field at the park. Slide, please. Looking ahead, my main focus of effort next year, on top of maintaining all the good things that we're doing, is increasing revenue. And the only way for us to do that is through fundraising. And so as a district, we've purchased some new software that will allow us to enter the 21st century and go digital, so we don't have to write checks and cash to pay for our sports programs. But there's an additional opportunity there to build some online fundraising tools. And so this August, that Ms. Johnson and I will be looking hard at how we do that, both for our individual teams and then kind of almost like some capital projects that we're looking ahead to as an athletics department. Reinstate our athletic booster program, and that's separate from the booster club. I don't know if you remember, in the gym there used to be the gold donors and the silver donors. We're looking to kind of revamp that program and get some of our local businesses and people who, I know the people have come to me, there's people who want to give money to our athletic programs. We just don't have the infrastructure in place right now to be able to accept it. So working with Mr. Field to develop that infrastructure. There's a lot of WIA amendments this year. One of them was flag football. We're not going to adopt that as a sport right now. We're going to looking to adopt that as a club. Main reason being is just affordability and looking at when we would have it and what programs would that detract from. We are currently working on a co-ed flag football club. The WIA sport is a girl sport. The problem is that it would increase our officials' costs quite a bit. 2 games a week, 2 to 4 games a week, 4 officials per game. So you're looking at the same cost as a football game without the revenue that would come in, I think, from the gate. Unfortunately, I just don't think that it would draw the same size crowd. But we are looking at develop as a club, and then if it takes off, then we would absolutely support that as another sport. I want to continue to look for additional opportunities for our teams that are not well represented in the Neighborhood South Conference. So currently there's only 4 football teams. There's only 3 fast pitch teams in our league. There's only 2 wrestling teams. And so really kind of partnering with some of the leagues that are close to us to establish some scheduling agreements so that we're not traveling as far to make some of those non-conference games happen. We currently don't celebrate our athletes except at the end of the year. And so I've been working with Kimmy. We're going to develop a method of celebrating an athlete of the week, an athlete of the season, and then an athlete of the year. And then you guys have seen the TVs that are in our buildings, and they would be celebrated there. So we do that at the middle school and the high school level. Working on figuring out uniforms and equipment, where it's all at, how much do we have, and making plans off of that. Continuing to improve our facilities when I can afford it. I want to get some Team Snap going. If any of you have kids in youth sports, you may be familiar with it. It's an online platform that allows for messaging between coaches and players and families. but it follows all of the open records request agreements. It also builds an individual website for each team and club, right? So if you are a member of the Queer Trans Club and you have something going on that you want to get out to all your members, anybody who's a member of your Snap page, you can send out some information there. You can, if you're doing a fundraiser, you're doing a car wash, you can put that all out there. It's just a great way for us to kind of, for each of our teams and clubs to be able to show some pride in what they do and get out their schedules. And then I have been selected to be one of the board, be on the board of directors for District 2. There's 6 athletic districts within the state of Washington. Ours is District 2, and so I will be on that board next year. That's it. Sure. Oh, we did.
They've been on just as long as we have, and they can't keep up.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for all this information. I also just really wanted to just publicly commend your athletes that helped support with the basketball camps this winter.
Yeah.
They did a phenomenal job out there working with those kids, and the little kids had such a amazing time seeing the big kids and playing the games with them. And so just huge shout out to those athletes for their leadership and for them showing up over winter break and running a really amazing camp for a lot of kids.
Awesome. I'll pass that along.
Yeah, congratulations on your District 2 position.
Thank you.
I'm really excited that you're going to be representing District 2 and us on that board. My question, circling way back to the top of your presentation, is there any goals or strategies or pathways you can see to offering girls and also our, gender fluid folks opportunities to stay in sports? What does that look like in the future? Because you're noticing that sometimes kids drop off, from female athletics when they hit high school.
I've got one. I think one of the biggest things is hiring coaches that are I think
Got it. I sat on there, I need my steps.
that's that'll age you if you understood that joke, because I got it. I think what that begins with is having good coaches at the middle school and the high school level, and recognizing that there's a way that you've got to coach folks that aren't sure that they. I think that's. It came back on. I think that's the number one thing. I also think that all of our facilities upgrades, and what I did include in there is we're going to be upgrading the locker rooms as well. As I did my Title IX work this year, that was the one thing I identified, is that because the softball players came to me and they said, we can't fit our softball bats and helmets inside of our lockers, because in the athletic locker room, the men's locker room was built for football pads, so they're large. And then the girls' lockers are about 8 inches wide. And so we're going to be, that's part of our bond work, is to replace that. And so just creating that feeling of all of our space, there's an equal amount of resources and time and care that goes into not just us, but our facilities and our programs and everything else. You're welcome.
So far, except you just handed it to a redhead. I just need to say this is awesome. Just like you were saying, to keep students who don't necessarily want to keep going. Morale throughout the whole district. This is awesome. And also for the kiddos that don't normally play sports, to get them out and be social. I'm speaking one in particular, and being a parent that's out there volunteering during sports. These are kids that You usually can't unleash them from their phones, and social elements is sometimes a struggle, and getting them in sports is awesome. So all these improvements and things you guys are doing, thank you. It's awesome. Thank you.
I just want to take a moment to thank Director Greenheron, who can't be here today, but I wanted to channel him in his role as our WIAA rep on our board. And one thing that he taught me was the correlation between high school or middle school athletic activities and higher academic achievement. And so learning that there's a really distinct correlation between success as a student athlete and success as a academic learner just heartens me and makes me realize just how very important this programming is beyond the opportunity for character development and athletic prowess.
And we all know this, but I have to say it. Athletics and activities are the cheapest intervention for all of our students.
The number of our students that the only reason that they come to school and the only reason that they try is because they've been sitting in my office, and I tell, like, you are about 3 percentage points away from not being able to compete. And that drives them. Yeah, I'd love to share names and success stories here, but it's been amazing. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Sommer, for the overview and the details. I echo the thanks and best wishes of the rest of the board members. The last thing on our agenda tonight is the public discussion of our board goals, which we've spent the afternoon and evening crafting. These are still a draft. We have not had input from one of our board members, and we need to get more detail from our administrators on the key indications, but we're going to bring them up and talk about them briefly. Here.
We had one more athletic, the athletic
yes,
code.
please. Yes.
So
Sorry.
There's an update to the athletic code. And it's not a change in policy. And the reason it's at the board is because if you can track at the bottom that this has been approved by the board going back to 1998. I'm hoping, yeah, there should be the changes I made are in green, or excuse me, in yellow. And what it simply was, and I didn't put it in yellow. I updated some of the pronoun usage to be inclusive. And then I just adjusted it to meet what we're currently doing in the school. And if there's been changes at the state level to the state policies that are referenced here. There were a 4-period day, but some of our students are taking 5 classes, and so it just changes there. This is a policy change at the state level. They call them non-prescription prescribed or non-prescribed prescription drugs. There was, I think, there's a change to the definition of hazing at the state level. And this is the WIA's policy statement that we have included in our code of conduct.
I don't know if it's appropriate to point out the use of the institution of higher education in this context. Is that an appropriate usage of this context, given that we're just quoting the law? And should we say something about how that correlates to holding a similar standard for this institution of K-12 education? Okay, so I just hope that we might hold our students to the same standard of not causing these harms to a student of K-12 education. Just food for thought.
I had a quick question about up above the dress code, which I know is, layered in all contexts. But I guess my question would be, is that WIAA rule? Is that, how does that either meet or exceed the dress code of our school district and the policies we've set there, which I can look up, so you don't have to answer that question. But I just have a curiosity around our folks who we were talking about, our McKinney-Vento folks, our folks who are free reduced lunch. Not all of those folks have, not everyone has access to what might be considered traditional business casual or whatever. So just wondering if, cool. Okay, great.
Safety. Yep.
Great.
And obviously anything, I mean, we don't allow, WI has some very specific rules about what you can wear. You can't wear and how big the emblem of the Nike swoosh is and everything like that. And then the only other issue would be our school policies about wearing clothing that depicts drugs and alcohol or gang. So
Perfect. That was the answer to the question my brain wanted to ask. Thank you.
yeah. And I can assure you that, if there was a team, like I know our boys basketball team will often wear collared shirts on game days. Any coach who's going to make that a requirement, they're going to have to either work with students to ensure that they have that, and we can provide it if not. Otherwise, we're not going to have that requirement.
Excellent. Thank you for that reassurance, because of course, dress code also falls into, how people dress in terms of presenting themselves and their identity and their gender. And so that helps me understand how the rules are applied. Thank you so much.
I was just going to say, if there were any other comments, I do appreciate in the concern for the dress code, and also the making sure that we are holding or acknowledging that we are applying this definition of hazing to, I suppose it's 612 students, but you theoretically K-12, but those who are on those teams are 612. Yeah. And I appreciate your due diligence in making sure that we're up to date on everything we need to be up to date on for this. Thank you. Anything else on this item? Okay. Thank you very much. Sorry about the confusion there. Now we will move on to the board goals discussion. Again, just to go back over this, these are goals from the board to the superintendent, which are then translated by the superintendent and administrators into the school improvement plans, and then down into the classrooms and all aspects of the school. Traditionally, we have 3 overarching goals: something relating to social emotional learning, something relating to academic growth, and something relating to logistics. And then within that, we have several subpoints or pillars, whatever we want to call them, that we as a board lay out, and then the educational professionals propose how those will be measured to ensure that they are being accomplished. And then we as a board approve those that measurement proposal. So what we have here tonight is the overarching goals and the pillars and some ideas on what that would include, but we do not at this moment have the specific measurements that would feed into these overarching goals and pillars. And the pillars and goals themselves are what Dr. Clifford will be evaluated upon at the end of the year. So the first one, social emotional learning, we actually retained our overarching description. We will deepen our school culture of care, or changed it slightly, but overall retained it. We will deepen our school culture of care and belonging with particular attention to systems, practices, and staff intra and interpersonnel capacities. And then the two pillars under that are expanding the culture of care work within staff, recognizing that one of the biggest ways to impact student learning is impacting the morale of staff, morale and support for staff. And then the other pillar is build student feelings of safety and belonging. And you can see the points under each one that sort of explain what the board was thinking with each pillar as the administrators build on the measurables. We'll go one goal at a time. Are there any comments or questions on this first goal? Most of the people in this room have been looking at these goals since noon, so you won't hear many comments or questions from us. Okay, looking at that, we'll move on to goal 2, academic. One thing we have added on this is equity looks like for each of these. So for the social emotional learning, equity looks like each individual feels seen for who they are and is valued within and accountable to the school community. So it's just a sort of definition of, if we're succeeding, this is what it looks like. Now moving on to goal 2. Thank you for sticking with me on this, Ms. McCarroll. We will expand and hone our use of best practices that nurture and create innovative learning environments supportive of every student's resilience and success in the future they choose. And the two pillars within that are improving vertical alignment in mathematics. We identified this as one way that we can reinforce our efforts to improve mathematics achievement and understanding. And then the other one is audit the effectiveness of professional development, which feeds into that culture of care for teachers also. You should hopefully note a great deal of connectivity between the pillars within the various goals. So this is looking at how we can make our staff more effective in doing and enjoying their job. And for this, equity looks like ensuring every student, especially those historically underserved, is supported in their academic growth, resilience, and success in the future they choose. It's very close to the actual goal writing because it's pretty straightforward. Are there any comments or questions on goal 2?
Yeah, I just thought as we move this toward finalization and adoption, we might want to look at parallel structure between our equity looks like comments, just because I feel like the first one is a little more like outcome. This one a little bit more process. The ensuring is the work. The outcome is the students are supported. So we just might want to think about finessing the language a little so that there's parallel structure.
Excellent. Thank you for pointing that out. That's something that you can hopefully add into as we finalize that for vote next week. Goal 3, logistics. Mission-aligned and discerning stewardship and use of district assets, land, facilities, people, money, institutional knowledge, and time in this time of transitions to facilitate long-term district success. So this last year was getting everything ready for Dr. Clifford, and now it's ensuring that through the transition, we are maintaining that stewardship and effective use of mission-aligned district assets. And we split this into 3 different pillars: for the superintendent, for the facilities, and for staff. It felt like this needed 3 different buckets rather than just 2. because there's a lot going on here, particularly with the bond work that is under facilities. Equity looks like not burning out human or financial resources. Workload is appropriately scaled. Impact of bond work is spread out among staff members, basically so that one person doesn't have to move 6 times and someone else doesn't have to move at all. And financial choices are made with equitable student outcomes in mind. Be judicious in our responses and decision-making. Comments or questions on goal 3? Marnie, do you have one of the mics? Yeah.
So I did have a question. If you roll up just a little bit under goal 3, create and deepen community partnerships. Are you referring to organizations in the community, or are you referring to individuals in the community?
I believe that the intention there was mostly with organizations.
Okay.
Yeah, but-
oh, go ahead.
I would just like to add, though, in entry plan, a part of the entry plan is building relationships within the community across individuals, partnerships.
Excellent. All right. So that'll be included. And my second question is, I see the oversee committee work. What committees are you referencing?
Well, we have 2 official committees at the moment, which is the Environmental and Equity Committee. So those are the ones listed here.
Excellent.
And as more come in, they would certainly fall under that.
Great. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions on this? Okay. Then we are completed with this discussion. We will have an opportunity for the board to debate these when it comes up for vote at our business meeting next week. We can also fine tune any wording at that point or between now and then. If you would like to align those equitable statements, Director Jackson, and get that to Ms. Maccaro.
Yeah, well, if time allows, I'll just write some of my own reflections and come prepared at the meeting to read them.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, we can make amendments as necessary. Okay. I believe that is everything on our agenda tonight. With that, thank you very much. Good night. This meeting is adjourned.